have to say I'm really happy and thankful to be here today. I've been a fan of GTEC and an active supporter for the past 2 years, contributing as a mentor with the goal to really share some lessons learned with aspiring entrepreneurs, because the thing is, like, for me personally, it was definitely the best decision of my life to go into entrepreneurship. And my personal mission is to not stop spreading the word until becoming an entrepreneur is at least amongst the top 5 of especially young women, but people in general in Germany. So I'm Tanja, I'm co-founder of Kisura. We're the digital stylist for women active in Germany and in Austria. And to start with, first things first, who am I? So I'm a natural born Westphalian. I'm 33 years old. Today I was raised in Münster, and since I was a kid, my utmost goal was actually to become an astronaut. So entrepreneurship was not at all on my personal top 3 of profession wishes. So yeah, I wanted to become an astronaut, and it was, to be honest, just until 6th grade where I realized that physics, which is required for becoming an astronaut, is definitely not one of my core competencies. So it was harsh, I'm not lying. My professor confirmed that I'm definitely one of the persons without a genius physical knowledge. And so I switched to becoming a pilot because I just love flying. And then when I became a teenager, I realized that I couldn't become a pilot due to health issues. And it was just then where actually becoming an entrepreneur got onto my radar, because both my parents have been working as entrepreneurs, and both of them have chosen becoming an entrepreneur as a second path of their career. So when I decided which studies to pursue, I was really in favor of following the classical way, studying business, learning something serious, learning enough, following a classical corporate career track, until ultimately, after a couple of years, my father founded his first business after 25 years in business, actually. My plan was to become an entrepreneur. And so I worked with BASF, I worked with KPMG, so really focused on the classical number crunching financial role. And it was at HHL in Leipzig where I did not only meet my business partner and very dear friend Lihn, with whom together I started Kisura a couple of years ago, but also where I got in touch with other entrepreneurs and figured out that starting a career in startups is actually an amazing opportunity to get first-hand learnings and to learn on the spot. So after my studies at Leipzig and in India, I joined the Berlin startup scene. I joined Mr. Specs, and it was actually a very, very exciting time because back then Mr. Specs, online retailer for glasses, shades and contact lenses, for those of you who don't know yet. And it was a super exciting phase because back then we really scaled it up and we scaled it down. So it was then where I totally got bitten by the startup bug, and where I was so intrigued by innovative retail concepts, because what really, really intrigued me there was their disruptive approach to this super traditional industry that's the opticians. Opticians are craftsmen, and Mr. Specs managed with their approach to really digitalize that traditional industry. And it was back then in 2010 where I started to deal with innovative retail concepts, where I deep dived to understand how do different industries work, how does retail work, how does digitalization of products work, And ultimately, what about digitalization of services? And it was in 2011 where I stumbled upon this new concept called curated shopping, which was back then, 2011, yet super successful in the US with a player called Trunk Club. And if you recall, today it's a commodity to order goods online, but back in 2011, these were the early days of Zalando. No, sorry, back in 2009, these were the early days of Zalando. And in the US, there was already this movement in curated shopping to build a next step, the next level e-commerce. And I thought, I was so excited about that concept. I loved the idea of providing a solution for men who hate to shop, because the concept is simple. You have stylists that compile outfits for you and send hand-picked items to your door. And I was like, men hate to shop in the US. Men probably hate to shop here in Germany as well. So why the heck is nobody doing that? So I founded my first company, Modemeister, curated shopping for men, actually. Lynn was back then my sparring partner number one. So back at university, where we started as fellow students, then turned friends and became here in Berlin sparring partners. And it was a very exciting phase, a very exciting time. And it was after a couple of months where we realized that if we want to realize our goal to set up a lean version of e-commerce, lean version in terms of scaling through data and not through like super heavy investments into logistics or just performance marketing, we've got to play the data game. And per definition, like, women would be much more open to use that kind of service. So we started in 2012 to work on the model, to pivot the model, and that was also the time where we met Gary Lynn, our investor of our first days, who was intrigued by the model of curated shopping. And so Lynn and me convinced him to make the bet together with us and go for the not so obvious yet super big case of curated shopping for women. And yeah, that's how it all started. So we founded the company, Kisura, and we are a founding team of 2. We are divided by functions. I'm responsible for product, marketing, and PR. And that is how we look like today. So Kisura actually is Swahili and means gorgeously beautiful woman. And our goal is to disrupt female fashion industry by bringing like this personal component back into the industry, and by curating products based on a customer's preferences and needs to her to her convenience. So actually, how it works, because I'm not sure, I would say statistically here's 50% women, so sorry guys, you are not like the direct target groups. Let me quickly explain you how it works. So it's in 3 very easy steps. So a customer, the woman, registers online, she fills out her style profile, she has the opportunity to interact with one of our stylists on board, and then she will receive a box with hand-picked outfits delivered to her door. She does not need to pay anything for the service. We don't do any markup. The service is for free. She just keeps the items that she loves. And our goal is, according to the meaning of Kisura, that every woman who uses our service shall feel very confident and beautiful. Because to our conviction, beauty comes from within, and beauty comes with confidence, regardless of size, regardless of budget. This is why we took a very broad approach, and we offer all different sizes, all different budget categories to really offer an alternative to the classical stationary retail to the women. So our women, including me, we save time, we get what we want, we have the convenience, and we don't even need to leave the door for that. So 6 years ago, because I'm here today because I don't want to talk about our specific business, but my goal is really to share my personal learnings with you in order to provide you with food for thought. I know that many aspiring entrepreneurs are also here amongst the group. Can I just get a few hand sides maybe who is thinking about building a business or who's working in a, that's already very good, yeah, who's working in the startup scene, I see, and who's already running a business. Cool. So we see and this is what I love about GTEC. It's the diversity of the audience. So so when I prepared for today's lecture, I really decided I want to share personal learnings that are generalistic enough so that that everybody can get something out of it. So don't expect a ready-to-use application, but just here and there a few food for thought. So Reid Hoffman, he is one of my personal role models, co-founder of LinkedIn, and he's pretty famous for the quote, as an entrepreneur, you're someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on your way down. And to be very honest, it was just after I got into entrepreneurship that I really realized the power of that quote. Because when we started Kisura, we had no clue that 2.5 years later, we would be copied by one of the largest retailers in Europe, and they would be haunting us. We also had no clue that 7 years later, one of the biggest parallel companies in the US who have been under the radar when we started, but has been active in the industry for long, who's focusing on women, would file for IPO and for a multi-billion valuation. We didn't know that, and that it would create that much excitement and movement in the industry just this year. All we knew was we've got to put our bets, we've got to jump and just create problems, solve problems on the go, and get things done. And to take another quote of Guy Kawasaki, whom you might also all know, it's actually pretty true. Ideas are super easy. What is so difficult is the implementation of it. So I brought my 5 lessons learned for you, and please feel free. We're not at school here, not at university, so whenever there is a question, feel free to give a hand sign, and then we can really design this as a dialogue as well. So first of all, team and execution is key. Often said, can never be said often enough, because clearly, regardless if it's a project or a business, the idea is a maximum of 10%. What really counts is the execution. And the execution goes back to the team and to the right mindset. And Kisura, we would not be today where we are without our amazing team of talented people who have just always been crazy enough to like think together with us that we can like really change the world. And today we have over 65 employees, colleagues from over 50 nationalities. Latest statistic is that we are speaking officially like 14 languages on board. And this for a company who is basically working, like operating only in the German-speaking area, really shows like how important global, like the global approach is for us. So this is especially relevant now for those of you who are considering getting into entrepreneurship, who are maybe already dealing with an idea, finding the right partner, and finding the right team. From my experience, it is very crucial that one does not try to find another you. Yeah. When Lynn and me decided to start together, we knew we don't need complementary skills. We don't need like another twin. What we need is complementary skills. And founding with friends is great, but it requires rules. So we are always very strict with that. It's business first, and friendship is the add-on. So what we did back then is we defined clear rules. I've seen many teams from the outside and from the inside, and it turned out that misunderstandings within the founding team, and there will always be at some point in time over development, this kind of like conflicts that arise. It is so important to have like everything set out. And this is not only about defining rules of like how one wants to work together, because it's normal. We are all humans. Like when things are tight, when times are harder, emotions get high, and then one would really risk to lose the business focus and get just distracted. So my warm recommendation is just make sure that like you work everything out in moments where everything is still like rosy. And the same holds true for a proper contract work. I've met founding teams that completely neglected this contractual framework. And I mean, nobody likes contracts, right? I mean, legal work, it's complicated, it takes time, and it's costly. Trust me, it's well spent time and money, because we have always working like this. It's good and important to like set up everything straight in times where like all is easy, so that when things are not that easy anymore, you will always be happy to have everything clarified. The second part regarding like founding team, how to work together and to set things up, make sure that you and your business partners are equally committed. And the easiest way of doing so is to like just apply a the very same ratio for shares, for compensations. I've seen teams where one was maybe working on an idea before, or like invested a little bit of more time because the other person was still working in the other job. In the end, it doesn't matter, because thinking back at Kai Kawasaki, like ideas are easy, the implementation is the only thing that counts. So I can only recommend you to leave all that aside and just to make sure that within your founding team, you are like all equally incentivized, so that this is no room for distraction. Because over the course of the entrepreneurial journey, there will be so many tough times where you really don't want to worry about like how committed is the partner and are we always on the same page. Yeah, and the last thing regarding the right team, negative people bring problems to every solution. It's harsh said, but it's actually really true. And so for us, I'm a very positive person, and I wouldn't say that I'm super optimistic, but at least I'm always like seeing opportunities in every challenge, and just make sure that you surround yourself with like-minded people. And I'm so happy to really have a wonderful team on board who is like-minded and who is together with Lynn and me like building towards our vision every single day. Because like I said, this can, in the end, the entrepreneurial game is a mindset game, and you want to make sure that like everybody is on the same page. Yes, please.
Could you give an example regarding the contract between you and your co-founder?
So we have a very clear setup. So we all own equal shares. We have like our employment agreement with the company. We do have our shareholder agreement with the company. We did not invest in person, but through a vehicle. But that has other reasons. What is even more important here, that all these contracts, they contain clauses like, for example, what if somebody leaves the company? What if in the occasion of a sudden death? Yeah, nobody wants to think about these times when you're starting up, yet like it's super important to cover this. So in the end, like you go through all different probabilities, options of like what could happen, and you want to always make sure that like it doesn't harm the company, it doesn't leave any question like what belongs to whom. And yeah, and internally we have a very clear rule. So as I said initially, we are divided by functions. So my partner Lynn is taking care of logistics, operations, styling, administration, and all of us have like the last word to say in the respective area. So we challenge each other, we push ourselves to like until there's no limit, but then when it comes to decision making, we are very clear about that.
Right, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so execution rules, obviously, yet let me give you a few examples of what this actually means, because we're not here for the bullshit bingo, right? So focusing on getting things done. For us, when we started, and this actually applies to all startups, when you're new, you're super fragile, you lack sustaining assets, and it's just like, it's a dangerous world out there, right? And once you like put your foot out there and you're visible, you can be target of attacks of a competitor, of anything. And so what you want to make sure is that you're coming out at like a decent speed. So what we did is when we pivoted the model from the male model to the female model, we did not talk about anything. I mean, we talked to people, but we talked to people to whom we had to talk. We didn't spend our afternoons or our days in St. Oberholz, and I love personally St. Oberholz, and I also used to work there, Freudscher. But like really, we didn't talk about our idea just like randomly, because we really wanted to make it out there as soon as possible. And it went that far that we were just known as the mystery shopping girls, because our colleagues with whom we shared an office there, they knew that we would be like into female fashion and into e-commerce, but we did not like spend too much time on sharing all the details, because our utmost focus was just get out there, and this allowed us to launch in like only 3 months time to market with a fully prepared back end and a kind of prepared front end. I get back to that later. But seriously, because in the end, like not a single penny is earned just through attempting doing something, right? And so we took that one very, very serious, and that's what I can just like strongly recommend to everybody. Because searching for the state of being ready, that actually really does not exist. It's a phrase, perfect is the enemy of good. However, like we have experienced it so many times. Sometimes it's just like better to go out and to see what happens, because what we did when we started, we put up so many different hypotheses. We were like, will women love our service? Will women be willing to share all that intimate information regarding like size, regarding problem zones, problem areas, which areas they would like to cover, which areas of their body they would like to like put into the spotlight? So these were all crucial questions where we didn't have an answer for, but which were like critical for the business success. So instead of like playing the theoretical game, we just made sure that we go out there as soon as possible. And we still aim today, when we are in product development, in design, in styling, in operations, like we still aim at a very strict MVPing process. That means like go out as fast as possible, optimize later, and that's like, yeah, how we do it. Yes, please.
So how big was your team when you went to market?
2 people, Lynn and me, and then we got one intern for business development. After 2 months, we got a second intern for social media after 3 months, and we also had 2 developers. Yeah. Questions? Okay. So, fail often, fail fast. Yeah, please.
So you used for the first prototype 2 developers?
Yes.
I guess freelancers?
Yes. Freelancers working full time.
Did you have any problems afterwards using freelancers for creating the first prototype, and then probably had some changes? Like,
what do you mean with problems? Do you mean like the maintenance after handing over the product? Or
yes. Like you assume that the German customers are
yes.
Like the Americans, and you said that you want to focus on getting things done first without talking and testing too much. But for me, it's like dangerous because maybe the customers here are a little bit different, so you have to make the app develop in a little bit different way afterwards, and then using freelancers may be difficult if they're not accessible anymore.
Actually, you just mentioned a very important point. Of course, customers are different, and they differ very much when it comes to like consumption behavior, etc. So it's a complete wrong approach, taking this classical copycat mentality and just like look at what's working in other geographical areas and then copy paste it to a market without taking that into consideration. That is what's even in favor of taking this approach of very small iterations, just to like constantly test, like constantly test your hypothesis, get real customer feedback, and then like develop upon customer feedback and improve over time. And to answer your question regarding the freelancers, what is here really crucial is to have a proper contractual work down, like behind that, right? Because of course, like when you work with externals, there's always at least a risk that these people are, because you're one of many projects, for example, might not always like take the same broad approach in looking at future potential risks, etc. So this is why it's super important to include that into the project plan. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, more or less. Thank you.
Sure.
So maybe just short, I will just ask. You said that there were 2 freelancers that working full time. So you mean like only for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes, please.
What was your initial channel for the first 1,000 customers?
I'm coming to that in 2 slides. Good. So, this will be the last quote actually for today, yet this is our mantra here still nowadays. Again, Reid Hoffman, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. And this goes again back to what I said initially, this state of being ready actually does not exist. And humans, including myself, we always tend to like aim for the perfect solution. However, like in a world of uncertainties, of open questions, of bets that have been placed but yet like need to be confirmed, there's like no alternative on just like to speed things up, do the right tests, and then improve over time. And how this translates actually not only to product but also to other measures. I brought some of our PR gold moments. So we were just about to launch in summer 2013, go public, open for a broader range of customers. When we received, and again we were like 4 people plus IT, and where we got a press request for an interview of one of the most renowned startup media. So we had 12 hours, and we didn't have PR back then. We didn't have visual design. We didn't have picture material. We had a product that was about to launch, and we had that huge opportunity to just like get our very first clipping. So we were like, either we go for it and just somehow make it fit, or we don't. And as you can see, we went for it. And due to the lack of a founding team picture, what I can actually, as a side mark, strongly recommend everybody to have at least like the rough press kit ready. We didn't have it back then. So we weren't even at the same place back then. Lynn was traveling somewhere, I was somewhere. So we took like the 2 pictures that we had on our mobile phone, copy pasted them, merged them into one, and I mean clearly this is a team of 2 women who aim at disrupting the female fashion industry, where one is sitting in the forest, other is sitting in the cafe, and you can actually see the person who took my picture, which was Lynn, being mirrored here in the cover. I mean, let's face it, that's not Vogue, that's a joke, yeah?
Why didn't you take a picture together?
Because we were not both in Berlin. I was in Leipzig somewhere, and Lynn was also somewhere. So
you just said she took the picture of you.
Yeah, this was like, it was around Christmas, where and we still have the book, by the way. We got it from our very first investor, so it's very nostalgic thing. So, I mean, yeah, obviously, that's everything but professional. However, and this is why I put it out here, and I think not many have seen it, including us. It's been a long time. If I was to make the decision again, I would always do it again. And here's why. So we went out with this interview. We got like hater comments down there. We didn't care about that, because what happened is that just a couple of days later, we landed through that clipping our very first TV campaign, which then led to Bild coming approach us, because they loved the concept and they were so intrigued about like the fact that now finally somebody is tackling that for women. And then all the other lifestyle magazines came, and this is to answer your question, how we hacked our way to the first 10,000s of users without spending a single cent in marketing. And so here again, this is the best example of how it can actually look like to not wait for being ready. Questions?
Which medium was it?
Gründerszene. Yeah. Yes.
So can you give some more details regarding your products once as you mentioned, because you mentioned that you are talking some, for example, lean production, your product is not very ready, but you mentioned, and so what included in your product? So it's a website or technical?
When we launched?
Right, so what kind of components, how let's say, what we will consider as crucial factor for your success was to launch this product?
Yeah. Okay. So when we launched with with an interface where the customer could enter her data, and we also added all the database behind in the back end that would just like collect everything, even though if it was not processed back then, we were just like sure to get it and to keep track of it. And then time, like little by little, we launched like new site features. We made it like easier to register for it. And to give you one very concrete example of how we also pivoted then on the go, our initial hypothesis was that yes, women will love our service, but they will want to see the products digitally first. They don't want to receive a black box, but they want to like have everything visualized. So we started with we call it digital box, where we would display like it was a personalized shopping basket, like a personalized showroom for her. And then we wanted to verify and to confirm that case, and we did an A/B test and benchmarked it against the surprise box, and it actually turned out that the surprise box was significantly outperforming the digital box. So that's why we then ultimately killed that feature and are still working with that today. And to give you a rough rule of thumb, like for launching new features and testing it and then scaling it would take like 100 days and then another 100 days before we ultimately decide to kill it. More questions? So this is actually one of my favorite topics, because competition, everybody talks about competition. For some reason, so many people fear competition, and I want to tell you today what happened to us and why it was actually the best thing that could happen to us. Because why is competition per se a great thing? Because it's the most obvious external confirmation that you are onto something. So when we started initially, like, we have been the only people in the space for over 2.5 years, because everybody was focusing on the male model, and we were just like, together with our shareholders back then, like asking ourselves, so what is it? Is it us? Are we really, really good that we're seeing something that like nobody else sees? Or is it rather the other way around, that like everybody else sees the thing and that we just don't see it? So, I mean, of course, like this is how you question yourself and your approach when you build something that's completely new. And it was the best thing that could happen that the leading fashion retailer moved into that space after 2.5 years, because this was the ultimate confirmation of the market. Out of a sudden, there were no questions open, like whether this is a niche product or it's rather the evolvement of like further developing a mass market. And ever since, we've seen like big players stepping in, big players stepping out, and in the end, like, competition creates a market and makes everything much more fun out there. And what's helping us is that we continue to focus on our product, that we continue focused on our customers. And my honest advice is, whenever you're in a pitching situation and you get confronted with these kind of questions, what if? What if Google does what you're doing today? What if like Facebook does what you're doing today? Is it a business? Is it a feature for them, etc.? Just stay relaxed, because we've been back then very good at like finding explanations of why A, they would either never do that, or B, why it wouldn't harm us. And it was really just when it happened where we understood in which fortunate and in like favorable situation this put us. But again, here it is super important to communicate also to your team, because of course when you see that kind of movements, when like a lot is happening on the market, this creates fear, this creates tension. So back then when Zalando moved in, we were lucky enough that we have known that 3 months earlier, so we were prepared and could also not only like business wise, but could also like prepare internal communication, internal to the team, but also to the shareholders, to not have this coming up as a bad surprise, because you can imagine like back then it created quite a huge press buzz. Yes.
I have a question. So to understand, do you have physical products?
Yes.
You
Yes.
have your own products?
Yes.
So how long did it take you to source the products and then launch everything in 3 months?
Yeah, and that is another very important point. So again, if we consider like working the way up in small iterations, when we started, so we are working as a fashion retailer, so we handle goods and we also handle all the logistics in-house. And when we started, we were of course so convinced by our concept and why it would like create win-win situations, not only for the customer but also for the brands and the retailers, that we went out there pitching, and we got one no after the other. Why? Because the fashion industry works in very strict cycles. You have pre-order cycles of 3 months, 6 months, and you usually pay up front. So, and what a surprise, nobody waited for us. As like newcomers, startups are always considered as high risk. So we figured out with the classical approach of like building partnerships, getting retail partners and brands, we would never make it out there. So what we actually did was a hack. We went shopping, because again, our question was our goal was to answer the question, will women use our service, and will we be able to style women over distance? So, and in order to answer that question, it didn't matter whether we would own the partnerships or not, because what only mattered was that we somehow make it possible that we have some goods that we can like ship over to the customer. So we went shopping. We went shopping to the stores. We started with like, even without a customer card. Then we realized like, wow, and then there's no margin, because we were like not working with any markup. And then we realized, okay, at least we can get like a payback of 3% through the customer card at the end of the year. And so we just went there and then we started, and it was just then that like the store manager started to realize, oh wow, so there is one customer making like hundreds of euros per day, then thousands of euros per week, and then they approached us, and we landed our first deal. But this was really like, we really had to force ourselves to be super pragmatic, and of course we burned money with every single box we sent out there, but that was calculated actually. Yes, please.
You just said when Zalando entered the market, this was the best external confirmation. What did you think about the assumption that the market might be a one-player-takes-it-all market?
That's a good question, actually, because, of course, we've asked ourselves that. And, of course, we were, like, trying to understand, is it a winner-takes-it-all market or not? If you look at the industry, I mean, female fashion in Germany alone is 30 billion euros, whereof over 25 billion euros are still realized offline. And huge industries in B2C with a high rate of substitution always leave so much space for innovation. That's why we never feared whether it would be like a winner-takes-it-all market or not. Why? Because regardless of what might happen in the future, people will always need and want to buy clothing.
Thank you.
Other questions? So, number 3, entrepreneurship is hard work, enjoy the ride. And of course, there is these fairy tales where like people, like a team of talented people builds a business, builds an app, and then gets like acquired by the Googles or the Facebooks of this world in like no time, and everybody is like super rich. However, to be honest, like the chances of getting that is like winning the lottery. It's not working that well. And especially nowadays where times clearly have changed, also with regards to the investment climate. Like these crazy cowboy times where investors don't know on like where to put their money and where to park their hundreds of millions, they are definitely over. Why? Because like so many investors have burned so much money prior the financial crisis and also post-financial crisis. So these, I would say, crazy times are over. And it's sometimes funny when I talk to people and ask them about their motivation of like, why do you want to become an entrepreneur? Why do you want to start up? And for some, it's clearly the money, where I always say, if you want to get rich in like no time, then better go into iBanking or M&A, because entrepreneurship is not the, let's say, walk in the park for that, because it looks rather like that. A day in the life as an entrepreneur, it is a roller coaster ride, and what Lynn and me learned is to embrace this exact roller coaster and to tackle every challenge with the right attitude, and just like to enjoy this feeling of constantly being pushed out of our comfort zones. And it's hard work. Being an entrepreneur is hard work. It's hard work for the many hours you work, like weekends, vacations. Well, I didn't have that, at least in the first four years. And it's also hard work because of the mental stress that you are like dealing with, because you are in like, you're surrounded by like uncertainties, and you always have to make decisions, and people are trusting you. People trust you to like take care of what you do and of them. So of course, like I would be lying to if I say something different here. What makes it so special for us is that, as I said before, we managed to really embrace this. Because yes, it's more work than one would ever expect. It's more pressure than I'd ever expected, but it's also so much more fun than I'd ever expected, because it's so fulfilling to work on a thing that you love, and to work with people who inspire you, and to really like create something new from scratch. And that is so rewarding, that helps me personally to like always keep the positive attitude, and to like always keep going and going and going. And I also learned that it's not the key to just work hard, but really to work smart. And this is why I would also like to add to all this hardworking thing, this component of how to recreate yourself, how to get your energy back. And there's this saying that building a startup is like running a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I have to say that it's only this year, when I started to run marathons, where I really understood what it means and what is behind. Because when you build a startup, like when you apply for a marathon or a half marathon, or like any professional running competition, the commitment is first, and then on the way, it's like when you figure out on how to get there and how to go there. So what helped me in the past 6 years is to strictly prioritize, to think in future problems. This has actually become a running gag in my private friend circle as well. Like, whenever it's not relevant today and not directly relevant tomorrow, it's a future problem, and I will just like deal with it when it's the time and just focus now on what is really, really important and where I can have a direct impact on. This is one remark where I realized that especially women tend to have more challenges with rather than men, like how to deal with people who are not on the same page as you are, and how to deal with haters. And the truth is, like, one key learning for me was being okay with the potential that people would hate on us, that people would not be on the same page as we are, and just accept it and not like question ourselves or over question and over reflect of what we do, because the truth is, like, in the moment you put out things into the world, people will notice. In the moment you launch your product, you're out there. There's no curtain that protects you. There's nothing. You are visible. People will see you. People will get an opinion about you. And this can be like a favorable opinion. This can be not a favorable opinion. And people will talk about it. People will tell others. And so it's part of the game. It's part of the process. And when I first decided to leave my job, my kind of secure job at Mr. Specs, kind of secure because obviously it was also a startup, but like I left my known environment and jumped into the uncertain and decided to go for one of the most competitive industries that is out there. People were calling me crazy, like fashion industry with Uber, huge and powerful players like Zalando and like ASOS. So not many people showed like understanding for my decision back then. And you can imagine what happened when Lihn and me then pivoted and decided to move into female fashion. People called us nuts. But here's the thing, what we learned is really to take feedback and to differentiate between the different kinds of feedback and to differentiate constructive feedback from destructive feedback. And this is like clearly for us, we love feedback. I do love feedback, and I'm always like seeking for qualified feedback, and I just learned to like blend out the negative parts of it. Yes, please.
What's the recent obstacle you've waxed during your business?
Sorry, say again.
What's the recent obstacle you've waxed during your business?
The recent
Recent obstacle you've waxed during.
So business-wise, we were launching a new product. We just launched the subscription model, and this after 4 years of market education that our business is actually not working on subscription base, because German consumers are super risk averse when it comes to subscriptions. It's always considered being a trap. And unlike in the US, for example, where it's rather like focused on the convenience part of it. So when we decided to go for it, we did it upon customer request actually, but yet like we had no idea of how shall we really do that? How shall we make sure this gets acceptance on customer side? Because public opinion is always super strong, and when it comes to like, again, launching new things, it's always pretty tricky. So what we did actually is, and this is also in line with your initial question, we took a 3-step approach to it. So we tested first for acceptance with our existing customer base and built a complete manual workaround. And in the second step, we started to digitalize it. So same workflow, but just like digitalize it to invest less human resources into that. And now we're in the third phase where we really want to scale it up. But that was like beginning of this year and Q2, one of the major obstacles, because it sounds trivial, but it brings like our entire model into a complete different direction, and that's difficult to navigate and to balance out. Other questions? Okay, so last but not least, what we learned is on how to think big and yet balance out our ambitions to like disrupt female fashion industry and bring it into very teeny tiny manageable steps and iterations. And here, this is in line with my example of how we started. We didn't have any partner, any official partner on board. Like, people would not work with us because they didn't know us. So we built a hack for that. Same holds true for anything that we've done in communications. Of course, now we are also a little bit more professionalized, etc. But again, like we always made sure that we know the direction, because we realized that we need to know not only the next step, but also the following step to be able to make the next step into the right direction. That's actually why business plans make sense. That's actually why this kind of roadmap makes sense. However, to my convictions, like, it's really not a good investment in time if you spend too much time and effort on like doing the number crunching on the business plan, etc. Because in the end, you will not know it until you do it. So that's why we always say, like, do it in small iterations and just like little by little grow over time, and just make sure that like somehow you will navigate your way towards your goal. And to finish with, I just warmly recommend you to use your network, that you have here at GTEC, to use your network of your colleagues, of your friends, of the entire industry. Go out, talk to people about the kind of problem sets that you are dealing with. Once the mentor said to me, Tanja, the worst thing that you can do is stop asking questions when you need support and when anything is unclear. And this is actually a thing, like a learning that I'm also sharing with everybody in my team, because yeah, the biggest mistake one can do is consider that one can like do everything on one's own, and that no help or no support is being required. So from my side, thanks for your time, and yeah, I'm happy to discuss any topics of interest with you. Thanks.